domestic violence, and it's about our women. It's not about anybody else, it's about our women. But I would also like to say that domestic violence and abuse has no gender. Domestic violence and abuse and sexual assault is also perpetrated against men. But few men come out to speak against the violence which is perpetrated against them in their homes by their spouses. We have women who are afraid to speak out against the abuse which is perpetrated against them, because why? Shame that they feel and they endure at the hand of the abuser, and the shame that they feel and they endure by the hands of society, because society has put a gap order on many victims of abuse. You know what? Don't say anything. Let's keep it as our little secret in the home. Let's keep it as our little secret that we can sweep it under the carpet. But you know what, St. Lucia, and I've said it into Trinidad and Tobago, and I'm going to continue saying it in every Caribbean country that I go to, that very soon, that carpet that we continue to sweep our social issues under will get too high. And when we do have to remove that carpet, it will cause a whole lot of detriment and chaos in society. So today is a day when 1 billion women, 1 billion people around the world is rising for what? The elimination of violence against our women, our children. And it's time that we use our voice. It's time that we support those who are making a bold stand against domestic violence and abuse. And many of you all are looking at me, some of you all are hearing my voice, some of you all are doing whatever you are doing on the outside. But as I stand here before you, I do not just stand as a woman, I stand as a survivor. I stand as a survivor of sexual abuse from the age of 6 to 15 years. I stand as a survivor of physical abuse and also emotional abuse. And it's because survivors know the pain that we have gone through because of the violence that we experience. We have a passion that we can use our voice for prevention against domestic violence and abuse happening to our children, happening to our daughters, happening to our sons, happening to our sisters, our mothers, our aunts, happening around all of us. And many of the myths that we hear about sexual assault, it doesn't happen to certain people in certain economical bracket. You know what? Let's clamp that down, because I grew up in one of the best economical status or societies that there is in Trinidad and Tobago, and it was going on behind my closed doors. When everything looked nice on the outside, there was pain, there was suffering going on behind closed doors. And you know what I had to do for years? I had to wear a pretty mask that had me smiling all the time, afraid to speak, a pretty mask that said, hey, my family is great, my family is going good, there's nothing wrong going on the inside with my family. But in reality, I was beginning to bleed. That mask that I was wearing for all those years, blood began to come through that mask, because I grew up as someone who was very angry. I was living with rage. I grew up being very distrustful of people. I grew up also with a hatred for my male gender because of what I endured. And my healing was not a pretty one. My healing was not a nice one. My healing was one where I had to undergo a lot of counseling, a lot of trauma therapy. But you know what? I stand here today and I can boldly declare my name as being Sherna Benjamin, because I have removed that mask. I have come away from the silence. I have broken that. And I'm asking St. Lucia today, I'm asking those of you who represent your families today, as the sun is in the sky and as you're feeling the warmth of the sun, that you also feel the warmth of someone who is also bearing that burden of being sexually assaulted, bearing that burden of being abused by their husband, by their boyfriends, by their girlfriends, because we have some women, because of the pain of abuse, we do not know how to reach out and accept that love. So when you get a man who is showing you that love, hey, what, you know what? You're going to be toxic. You're going to be entering into a toxic relationship. So you lash out at that person who is giving you that love, which may be the male, which may be the female. But I'm here today to tell you that all is not lost. There is hope. And hope will continue to rise. With each day that the sun comes up, with each day that the moon comes up, with each new dawn, there is a hope. There is hope that survivors can rise. There is hope. And education is one of the things which is going to bring that hope. Many times we ask that there be direct intervention. But for there to be direct intervention, we need direct education. We cannot have direct intervention without education. There is too much stigmas. And I speak also for every relationship that there is. Domestic violence and sexual assault does not discriminate. Whether you are in a relationship that stands with a woman and a man or with the other genders, domestic violence does not discriminate. It is in every relationship. And the only way that we can reduce it is as we stand together, as we get educated, and as we use our voices to speak out against this crime, because it is a crime. That we speak for the women who have died at the hands of their abuser. That we speak for the children who are being raped right now. That we speak for the women and the men who are being trafficked throughout this region called the Caribbean region. Our women are being trafficked. Our women are being used as sex slaves throughout the world. And it is time as a region that we stand and we use our voice to speak for them. Right now their bodies are being sold. And it is one of the most lucrative business there is in the world, human trafficking. You know, I use my voice today to speak again for our children, our gems. You know, many times we hear people speak about stolen identity, and you think about your passport being stolen or your ID card being stolen. But for every child who has and continues to endure the physical pain, the emotional pain, the psychological trauma of domestic violence and abuse or sexual assault, their identities have been stolen. Their identities have been stolen by men and by women whose avaricious appetite continues to lure them to debase our children, continues to lure them to debase our women, and continues to lure them to debase our men. So St. Lucia, I ask you today not to rise for this February 14th alone, which represents Valentine's Day. It represents a day of love. It represents a day of harmony. But today I want to tell you, it also represents violence. It represents the blood that is being carried through our streets and carried through our homes. It also represents this. And do not just rise for today, which is February 14th, but rise every day after February 14th. And we will all continue to say, we will rise. We will use our voices for women who are voiceless. We will use our voices for the men who are voiceless. And we will use our voices in the region to speak out against sexual assault and domestic violence and abuse. Thank you.
Thank you.